passionate instigator and dynamic problem solver. Dr. Kevin Ross Emery, the host of the Dr. Kevin Radio Show, will be taking you outside the box, behind the curtain, and identifying the load of BS we are fed every day. And now, Dr. Kevin.
Hello, and welcome to the Dr. Kevin Show here on Om Times, where we're changing the world, wait for it, one Om at a time. This, our last third Thursday of the year, is going to be the last time in 2023 you will hear the dulcet tones of our own Rob Stewart as we have our last planetary influences for the year, which will actually take us into 2024. Yay, 2024. And my sliding in conceptually to the new co-host, Ashley Olstein, is here as well. And, of course, Dr. Kevin. You can call in at 202-570-7057. That's 202-570-7057 if you would like to ask questions about today's astrological insights. You can find out more about Rob Stewart at innercenterastrology.com. That's innercenterastrology.com. So before we, ride on a star with Rob, Ashley, how are you doing this week?
Doing okay. How are you doing this week?
I caught myself a bad cold yesterday.
Oh, no.
It's just a cold. But, yeah, I may sound like a little funny to you guys or to the audience. I'm going to be, trust me, I'm going to be drinking lots of tea in between every time I shut up. So who knows, I might get in a whole 2 ounces of tea. We know how often I shut up. I do want to let people know that if you come to NewHampshireMetaphysical.com, that we are running a digital online fair over the last weekend going into New Year's Eve. So if you want to pick the psychic brains of our practitioners that are up for that weekend, you can go to NewHampshireMetaphysical.com. You can book a Zoom or phone reading with them. They always offer the digital fairs. So you can call in, you can check in from anywhere around the world, get some insights about how to best close down 2023 and how to embrace 2024. And next week, actually, Ashley and I will be doing a show on creating your best 2024 and maybe even how to hit the old flush button on the toilet of 2023. Because I don't know about anybody else, but I got a few things I'd like to see go down the drain. So now, Mr. Rob, how are you doing?
I'm doing okay. This boy that, I'm dealing with my own cold and feeling beneath the weather type of thing, but doing okay and hanging in there, ready for 2024.
Well, good. We're all ready for...
Sounds like he's not ready for 2024.
Yeah. Mercury retrograde, we get, 4 shows a year with Mercury retrograde or so, and there's always some potential
Some
issues that arise with it.
Yeah. When are we done with Mercury retrograde this time around?
Mercury goes direct January 3rd, but it still lingers a bit after that.
Gotcha.
But so plenty of time for more of this this stuff. But maybe when he calls back, his voice will be less rubato than it was before.
Yeah, it was a little crackly.
Yeah. But I could just dive right into the sun here and just dive into this into the information as Dr. Kevin connects back in.
Sure.
I've been here the whole time. You just couldn't hear me. I couldn't hear you either. I never hung up or anything, though. So go ahead.
Okay.
Start over, Rob. You're up.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Sounds good. Yeah, we got a full Mercury retrograde going on, so we'll be sure to talk about that. So, the sun enters Capricorn on December 22nd, so tomorrow. And, every month we talk about how when the sun changes signs, that basically we have an opportunity to shine light in an area of life and energies in life in which we are there's more of a focus for all of us in this sort of collective consciousness here on Earth. And, the sun in astrology, I feel is one of these things that's a bit misunderstood in astrology. I see the sun as a part of our soul intention for our human expression. I don't see it as naturally of who and what we are naturally. In other words, if your sun is in Sagittarius or Capricorn, Aquarius, that doesn't mean that you are naturally those types of energies. From my perspective, having a sun in a sign is saying, hey, in this lifetime, there is a soul intention to explore what it's like to express that type of energy, and it always comes with challenges. So whatever sign your sun is, whether it's Capricorn or anything else, there's a challenge with it, and that's what we're here to do. One of the things, anyways. So, but as the sun is moving through Capricorn over the next month, from starting tomorrow, December 22nd, the themes of Capricorn are something we can all sort of shine a light on. And in Capricorn, it's really about, it's about many things, but consciously creating your own reality so that it's in alignment with your innermost self or innermost center. And so Capricorn, there is this sort of outer world element to Capricorn. There's, with Capricorn, we're talking about, your goals, your what you're building and creating and constructing in the outer world. But that's done in the best possible way when it's a reflection of your own inner world. And so with Capricorn over this next month, we're all being asked to sort of use practical action to change our physical reality, to create in this world with physical and the physical world. But it's also about bringing maturity and self-maturity, self-reflection, and self-discipline. Capricorn is known to require hard work. And with Capricorn, also the 10th house, but particularly Capricorn, when it's hard work, you're on track with Capricorn. And so, over this next month, it's really about harmonizing our inner and outer worlds and really going for that mountaintop. With Capricorn, there's always this sort of pinnacle or goal, obstacles and challenges to succumb, or not succumb, but ascend and overcome. And the symbol of Capricorn is the goat, and mountain goats can climb extraordinary heights, and it's pretty amazing what they're able to do in the face of fear, in the face of obstacles, and it's quite amazing to see those mountain goats traverse those peaks and the ledges that they do, and so that sort of it represents the basic energy of Capricorn, and that seeking a specific goal, something to attain, and to go for it in a practical, mature, disciplined, hardworking, productive manner. And Capricorn's an earth sign. There's 3 earth signs, and some think that Taurus, being an earth sign, really speaks to more of the mineral earth and mineral world. The Virgo, a bit more of the botanical elements of the earth. Again, this is according to some, and Capricorn, to some, represents the animal kingdom. And so this sort of, navigating the elements, here in the Northeast, it's a very cold winter as we're entering Capricorn season. And so these are some of the themes regarding Capricorn. The other thing I want to say with Capricorn is it's also about authority and honoring your own authority and questioning and looking at, what is an authority? What does that even mean? And, it's bringing into consciousness this sort of sense of authority and what is authority and what authority are we each taking in our own life? That sort of thing. Dr. Kevin, do you have any thoughts on this? Anything to add? Maybe he's still in the Mercury retrograde cone of silence.
I think so.
Okay. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Well. Ashley, do you have any questions?
I have a quick question. Just because I'm the John Q. public when it comes to astrology. I'm still learning a lot. Can you just refresh what the 10th house represents? Because you were saying the Capricorn is in the 10th house right now.
Yeah. Well,
or maybe all the time.
Well, so it's not that Capricorn's in the 10th house. It's just that the 10th house and Capricorn share natural energetic signatures. And
Gotcha.
Capricorn is sort of considered the natural ruler of the 10th house.
Okay.
And so they just have similar energetic signatures. And so when you talk about Capricorn, you talk about the 10th house, they're going to have some similarities with that.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So, and your 10th house might be in this sign or that sign or whatever, but Capricorn reflects the type of natural energies of a 10th.
Thank you.
And one of the other things is, I'm sorry, I had a coughing fit and I didn't want to have it on the radio, so I muted to have the coughing fit, which started just as you said, Dr. Kevin, just a second before you said Dr. Kevin. But I mean, we also a lot of times will associate Capricorn with stuff around our career. You talked about it as an authority figure, but it's also the area where you may be an authority or where your career is, and, kind of the face you're putting out to the greater world in more of like your profession, how you succeed, how you're perceived. Is that all line up, Mr. Rob?
Yeah, absolutely. I consider it sort of your public life, whereas as opposed to your private life in your home, that sort of thing. So
Gotcha.
Sometimes that's career for some people. For other people, it's their humanitarian, their efforts in society, that sort of thing, in the public life.
Well, and I think that we could say career, i.e. vocation. Like what's their, for some people, it isn't what they think of as a traditional career, but it's really where that career-like energy will show up, so to speak. But that's the only thing I wanted to add. So keep going.
Yeah. So we have a full moon in Cancer on December 27th, and this is at 4 degrees or 5 degrees Cancer rather. And full moons are a time of fruition and completion and tension, but it's a time of sort of making a choice and moving one way or another. Letting go of the things that aren't working and embracing those that are. And in Cancer, that's about your inner life. But with a full moon in Cancer, there's opposition with the sun in Capricorn. And so really whenever there's an opposition, it's asking us to find complementary energies within these two seemingly opposite aspects of our psyche. And in Capricorn, there's the professionalism, there's the discipline and self-respect and self-maturity, these sort of types of energies. And in Cancer, it's you're nurturing, you're having belonging, nurturing your inner child, your home, your family, your nest. So it's these sort of seemingly opposite types of themes. And in a full moon, we're really sometimes torn between those two polarities. For instance, with this full moon on the 27th, it's actually the evening of the 26th, I'm sorry. But with this full moon, you might be feeling a bit torn or tension within yourself between your work and home life, or your reputation and your inner emotional life, these sort of things. But again, there's something complementary about both of these things. Being mature in your emotions, being mature and, bringing that emotional safety and nurturing, Cancer, into your public work, Capricorn. So that there's some real alchemy that's always available during a full moon, but oftentimes it can be really felt in this sort of tension. Now during this full moon, Mercury and Mars are squaring Neptune. And whenever there's a square in astrology, we're being asked to make adjustments and make some changes and take in information from our periphery, essentially. And with Mercury and Mars, that's a real action-based, blurting it out. Words and anger can get, mixed up and cross-wired and be the same thing. There might be some angry words or assertive words during this time. And with this squaring Neptune, we're being asked to take in the sort of extrasensory perceptions and our want for peace, Neptune, in Pisces, to really guide our actions and our words during this full moon phase. And whenever there's a square, again, we're being asked to make some changes and take information in from the periphery. But it can, when we have tunnel vision, squares can be a bit of a challenge. And so, do you have any thoughts on this, Dr. Kevin, as we explore this a bit more?
I'm here. Well, I look at that square energy, and it's going on with a full moon, that there is also a time of, I'm going to call it a time of reckoning. And again, what's so important is to understand where this falls on your chart. You need to have your chart out. And of course, if you don't have a chart, innercenterastrology.com, you can go have Rob do your chart and explain it to you. Then you'd have it for our next month. But in that, when you look at it, I think there's a time of reckoning where maybe emotions have clouded things because it's Neptune. And there may be some hardcore reality and from the reality of what something is to what the emotions want it to be. Mm-hmm. And it's coming to a pressure point, a rubbing point, where the best way I can explain it is you come to the best decision for yourself on something. And again, where those play out would definitely be depending on how this falls into your own astrology chart. But you hear a truth, an intellectual truth, but it is at odds with your emotional longing or your emotional connection. And because you don't want to face it because you don't want to look at it, even though some part of you knows that if somebody points it out, if somebody brings it up, if it's pushed towards you, there's going to be angry words. There's this battle between something that might be not healthy but emotionally comforting versus kind of knowing that you have a right thing to do that you don't really want to do. Does that all make sense when I say it that way, boys and girls?
Yeah.
You're the boy.
Yeah. So if I look at my birth chart and Neptune is in the third house with, I don't even know what that is. I'm going to stop talking because I don't even know what the symbol is, so I'm going to just mess you up.
Yeah. I mean, if Neptune's in your third house, the Mars Mercury might be in your first, in Sagittarius. And this is another key concept here with this full moon, is, when there's ever hard aspects to Neptune, also harmonic aspects to Neptune, we can sort of see what we want to see without seeing the entirety of reality itself. Mm-hmm. And with Mars Mercury in Sagittarius, there's this, truth, the search for truth, the speaking the truth, asserting from truth. And of course, so I would imagine that on many sides of the coin, there's going to be a lot of talking, action, and so on, claiming truth. And this gets into a much bigger dynamic. I do think this next month is going to be very big on the global scale, the geopolitical scale, particularly for the United States and that sort of thing. And the reason for that is we have Pluto at the 29th degree in Capricorn. And this is a major, major theme, which ties into this type of the dynamics that you talked about, Dr. Kevin. But before we dive into that Pluto at the 29th degree, I think there will be, some, I forget the exact words used, Dr. Kevin, but it was something along the lines of confusion. And I think there's going to be a lot of confusion on both sides of the coin, whatever coin that is, with regards to truth and asserting that truth is very possible. Do you all have any thoughts on that?
Well, one of the things is that one can have an intellectual truth and an emotional truth that are at odds with each other.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And having this play out with this square with Neptune and Mars action, Mercury communication, I think that you're going to find that when called out on the paradox of it all, that there could be some very aggressive communication, some aggressive pushback. I also think that this is a kind of aspect that if you don't pay attention and really stop and think about what you're getting ready to say, if you don't practice good self-care around not reacting but getting into a place to respond, that the reaction will come out fast and furious, and it will lead to regrets. I think this is the kind of thing where you say something and before it's finished leaving your mouth, you may already regret it, but it will come out quick. It will come out with a Mars-Mercury force. And again, emotional truth and intellectual truth do not always line up. Sometimes they are completely at odds. So does that make sense?
Very much.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. I see it the same way. And with the sun in Capricorn during this full moon, it's sort of shining light on this need for self-discipline and to navigate one's emotions again, with Mercury, Mars, and Sagittarius, that truth and the emotional elements of that, I think we've touched on all those major elements. And I know we're coming up to a commercial break, so I don't want to dive into Pluto yet.
I'm going to add something to what you just said then, because we are coming up to commercial break, is that with Neptune involved, we can be susceptible to the illusionary part, the thing that we're believing because we choose to believe it, even if some parts of us know it's not true. And I think that plays out here, and I think it's going to be, this is an opportunity for a lot of, unfortunately, I would see them as painful epiphanies. Kind of the person who says the emperor has no clothes kind of epiphany. Because there is going to be this, is it the business of taking care of my business? Or as Jacob Marley said, humanity was my business. In A Christmas Carol. And, which is taking care of the human side, the emotional side, the self-care side, the nurturing the family side. And there we're coming right after break, and on the other side of break, we're going to give some airtime to Pluto and Capricorn here on the Dr. Kevin Show.
Conscious media for conscious minds. Om Times. Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of Om Times Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of Om Times. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
Vox Novus, the new voice. Vox Novus, the new dimension. Vox Novus, thought and movement leaders who will share from their experience and offer tools to help us navigate our rapidly changing world. My name is Victor Furman. Join me every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern on Om Times Radio for Vox Novus, the new voice.
Ascending Hearts is no ordinary dating site, but a spiritual dating site with a purpose, to link you with your soulmate. We engineer the serendipity so you can trust that you will attune with someone that has the same matching vibration as you. Ascending Hearts, the conscious dating site for the spiritually aware. Try Ascending Hearts for free. AscendingHearts.com.
If I could be you,
and you could be me for just 1 hour.
if you could find a way
to get inside
Each other's mind.
walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
We've all felt left out, and for some, that feeling lasts more than a moment. We can change that. Learn how at belongingbeginswithus.org, brought to you by the Ad Council.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Hello, and welcome back to the Dr. Kevin Show here on Om Times. This week we're doing our last of the year, Planetary Influences. We're coming up to the end of 2023, and we're going into the planetary influences that will open us up for 2024. I'm here with my co-host, Ashley Olstein, and none other than our planetary influencer, master of the stars, astrologer extraordinaire, Rob Stewart from InnerCenterAstrology.com. And our call-in number is 202-570-7057. So we're going to survive this full moon, sun, Mercury, Mars, Neptune. Well, we may not all survive it, but, there's got to be a few eggs broken when you do an omelet. Anyways, on the other side of it, what else is going on, Mr. Rob?
Yeah, so, we mentioned earlier about Pluto at 29 degrees Capricorn, and this is a really fascinating one. Now, the 29th degree of any sign is a culmination. It's sort of the transformation and deterioration, so to speak, so that something new begins, and then the next sign, the first degree of the following sign, or the 0th degree anyways. And so the 29th degree of any zodiac sign is this, it's a transformational degree. And, oftentimes, if you have a planet at the 29th degree of any sign, it suggests, the way I read it in a birth chart is, hey, there's going to be some type of transformation, there's going to be some type of graduation, there's going to be a breakdown of the old so that new arises. And in Capricorn, it's all about structure, and more specifically, authority structure. And now, Pluto's at the 29th degree, and this is the third time that it's touched the 29th degree. The first time, in the past year anyways, the first time that it touched the 29th degree was early in February through mid-March. And then in June and July, it also touched upon that degree in retrograde as Pluto is moving backwards in the sky. And now, starting just the other day, Pluto is going through this 29th degree again. It will touch back to that 29th degree later next fall. But the reason this is important and very interesting is, like I said, it consists of the breaking down, and on the other hand, the other side of the coin is about grasping to retain control or authority or structure or establishment. Now, I looked back to the last time that Pluto was at the 29th degree in Capricorn, which was a few hundred years ago, and I'm wondering, do either of you, can you take a guess when that may have occurred?
I couldn't even make a stab at it.
Yeah.
American Revolution.
The American Revolution. Yep. The last time Pluto was at 29 degrees Capricorn was in 1777.
Wow.
Which was, in 1976, or 1776 rather, Pluto was at the 28th degree and just about entering the 29th degree. But the last time this occurred was during the American Revolution, and what was happening there? Obviously, a lot was happening there, but it was the breakdown of the British control of the empire, of the, it's settlers wanting independence, that sort of thing. Now, fast forward to today, empire. Well, there certainly is one. The American Empire, the U.S. Empire, and its allies, and that sort of thing. And from some perspectives, there's quite a control, a grasp on that control, and that sort of thing. It's a very nuanced and long discussion to be had. But what this is suggesting, there's some transformation occurring in the authority structure in the world. And what exactly does that mean? I'm not sure, but, you can look around and perhaps, get some clues. I don't know. We're in the midst of this, of course, but, basically it's the breakdown of structure so that new structure will arise. Because you look back to the American Revolution and the U.S. Gained its independence and then started creating individual governments and different states and all that stuff. I'm not one of the American history isn't my strong point, but I think we all sort of know the general gist of all that stuff. And so what we're moving through now is similar about a breakdown of structure, breakdown of authority structure, so that something new is also arising. And with that comes the tighten fist of an empire, of a system that is perhaps not wanting to release that as just as the British Empire wouldn't want to just simply say, yeah, go ahead and create your own system and leave us out of it. Of course, they didn't. That wasn't in their interest, of course. So, I'll leave it there before we go further. But do you have anything you want to throw in with this?
So, it would be interesting because you said Pluto is going to come back one more time and hit this in the fall, right?
Yeah.
Do you know when in the fall?
Yeah. So this September through mid-October, that degree will be activated by a retrograde Pluto, which historically speaking isn't as energetically intense as direct. Pluto will be direct from October 13th through November 19th. So Pluto will be stationed direct at the 29th degree and moving forward. So it's this next year is certainly very interesting. When I think of structure, I think of the financial structure. When I think of empire, I think of financial sort of structure and empire that the world is based in. And it's very possible that there's some breakdowns in the structure in those ways. Plenty to speculate about, but yeah, go ahead, Dr. Kevin.
Well, the reason I ask is it sounds like it's going to be right around the time we're coming up to the next presidential election.
I'm
Absolutely.
actually looking at it right now, and for sure, on November 2nd, 2024, it looks like Pluto's at 29 degrees.
Yep.
Yeek.
Yep.
And knowing what a shit show the last presidential election was, I have to think this, and when Pluto moves forward this time, does it not touch the 29th again? Is it done touching the 29th? Does it get enough?
It's done. Yep, it's done. Yeah. Yep, absolutely.
I mean, I think it would be interesting. I didn't have the time to actually research those other two times that it hit it, which was to find, were there any major decisions or anything happening that was around our own elections, our own, I mean, there's been a ton of shit happening with, the whole idea of the stolen elections and blah, 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 blah. But it would be very fascinating to go back and look at the 29 degrees each time that it went. But the car knew it wasn't done running over you. The car is finished running over you in November.
Yeah.
Everything else was a warm-up.
Great.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, this election cycle is going to be a doozy. And this, I don't know. It's going to be an interesting year. And this, these Pluto cycles, these things occur in massive long-term cycles. And again, we're moving through something that we moved through back in 1776, and it's obviously can be felt that there's it's an interesting time right now.
So Pluto had to be in Capricorn at the birth of the nation. When our country was found, if you look at the birth as July 4th, 1776, Pluto must have been in Capricorn.
Yeah, it was
right?
at about, I think it's 28 degrees, might have been 27 degrees on July 4th.
Okay. Yeah. So we're having a Pluto return. So all the shit. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, we've already had the Pluto return technically, but with these slow-moving planets, it's not about the exact return point. It's a slow process, and obviously we've been moving through that. Pluto at the 29th degree is not great for empires. It's not great for trying to control. It's not great for, the current authority type of MO, mode of operation, and how that plays out, I don't know, but it's very interesting, and
Well, do you have any concept if Pluto back in the 1776 time period, do you have any concept on whether it was having the same retrograde pattern back then of run you over, go back, run you over, go back, that it has now? Do you know? I'm not going to try to make you look it up, but I'm just curious if when you looked it up, if we were still struggling with that, if they were struggling with the Pluto hitting us back then.
Yeah, well, the as I understand it, again, I'm not a history buff at all, so I had to kind of Google some of these things shortly before the show, and I found that the Revolutionary War went from 1763 to 1783. So there's quite a long period of time of independence and that sort of thing, and challenges and things along the way. And the actual Pluto at the 29th degree Capricorn occurred in 1777. And of course, it would back up or move forward, this sort of retrograde cycle. But the period, the Revolutionary War occurred through 1783, apparently. And so, this is part of a much deeper, with Pluto, it's something that's always deep, it's transformative, and there's something over time. And so, do I think something totally different is going to occur, by November 20th when Pluto leaves that 29th degree? No. But, this is there's a deeper process, deeper transformation occurring where 50 years from now, we might look back to this time and be like, okay, yeah, things were quite different in some way, whatever that is.
Well, she's going to get into Aquarius, start bringing that transformational energy to everything to do with Aquarius, which today we associate with technology and the internet. You've said that many times, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Rob?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. Yep.
And of course, there's so many things going on with money and taxes and debt and all of this stuff. And, we're in this plethora of, we're going to make cases up to go to the Supreme Court to try to take advantage that it's been kind of jury-rigged into this very conservative, much more conservative than the country is on a whole, which there's an overthrow of stuff. I mean, there's an overthrow energy when that happens, when the people that are making the ultimate decisions about our laws and what's acceptable and not acceptable is completely out of tune with the majority of the people. I mean, let's just say we got an 8-burner stove and every burner's got a pot on it that could explode during this time period. It's not just simply one thing. Now, what house was Pluto in the country, in the chart country, in our country's chart?
Yeah, good question. Let me see. I haven't looked. Let me see. What's the chart I used
You
to
mean
look at?
now or way back in the 1700s?
When it was born, yeah. When its birth chart. I want to know where Pluto was in our country's birth chart.
I was
So
looking. Yeah, go ahead, Rob.
It's Pluto's in the second house of the U.S.'s chart, and that's the house of survival, of hanging on and getting the bear. It's also the house of money, and that's why there's a huge financial element to this, because when we talk about empire these days, it's really about financial systems in my view, and with Pluto transiting the second house in the United States natal chart, certainly bringing changes and transformations to the financial structures, particularly in Capricorn. So yeah.
Hey, maybe we'll see the overthrow of the 1% and the redistribution of wealth in a way where a handful of people doesn't own 90% of the wealth. Wouldn't that be an interesting shift?
It would be an interesting one.
For sure.
I mean, it might not be good for us 1%ers, but, ha, ha, ha. If only, right? So, lots of stuff happening now, and how long does it hang? I mean, and you and I both know, Rob, that it's not just. I mean, like especially with a Pluto that moves so slowly, it starts getting 29th energy when it's still in the 28th, and it will keep the energy a little past it. It's not like it's it happens. It's not like a Mercury where it's like, yeah, it all comes and goes in 3 hours. Oh, there it goes again. How long will it actually be on some version of the last part of the 28th and the beginning of the next degree? I mean, like, what's that window of time?
Yeah, I mean, so November 19th of 2024 is the last time it'll be in Capricorn. Then November 20th, it moves into Aquarius. And, when a planet moves into that next sign, and, there can be sort of a shift. So, yeah, it's very fascinating, but, I really would imagine that, with Pluto and Aquarius, there's a number of different themes, but one of which is a sort of combining with groups, of course, and feeling, there can be certainly feelings of, can I be me? Do I have to be with the group? Do I have to, where's my tribe? Where, one can get lost in this sort of, loops one's own voice to the voice of the group. The idea of like mind group think is a real Aquarian type of energy, and particularly, you look at the history of humanity. It's very rare that a single person is violent or that sort of thing. But groups of people, like countries, can be very violent and very, and I don't like violent as the right word, but that's the idea of group think and group sort of thing. It's one thing to be mindful as we move into Pluto with Aquarius of, hoorah, waving the flag and, group thinking into, has gotten, I would say, many nations, including ours, particularly, in a lot of trouble. So anyways, lots of ways to explore this. That's certainly one of them.
Well, part of what I was thinking is that we have this 29th, and this is where I always get fascinated with astrology. So this is my gig, and I might be boring everybody else, but on the 21st is when it goes into 29 degrees of December. It leaves on the 21st of January where it goes into 0 Aquarius. So if we look from the 21st of December to the 21st of January, to me, things that are happening in that time period will end up giving us a glimpse of what's going to play out in November over the elections. Like this month, I mean, it's on the 29th degree for a month.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
and
that's part of what I was saying. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah,
So,
I totally hear you there. This next month, certainly, I agree with that there's going to be perhaps some insights or themes that could be showing their head again later in 2024. And I want to be specific with that. It's, at the 29 degrees Capricorn, there is this sort of sense of wanting to retain control, retain authority structures, establishment. You talk about the one percenters, which to me, I'm certainly not a one percenter, but we're talking, when we talk about establishment or that sort of thing, it's far less than a 1% type of thing. But themes of authority, wanting to retain authority over these past hundreds and hundreds of years, and not wanting to release that, so much similar to the British Empire, I guess you'd say.
One of the things that comes to me that's coming to a huge head, and we're going to very likely see resolved by January 21st, are 2 cases that are going to the Supreme Court that are fast-tracked. And one is Trump eligible to run for president? Mm-hmm. And the other one is, can he be held liable for the insurrection? Which he says, no, he can't because he was president, so he doesn't get held liable for it, even if it was an insurrection. And both of those are being fast-tracked as we speak, and I believe we'll have probably both, but at least one of those 2 answers will be shaken out of the Supreme Court through January 21st. And mark my words, that's going to play out in some way in the November elections, even if they decide to back Trump. Mm-hmm. But and we've got huge amounts of money that are already dark money that's already infusing everything to do around our elections and who can be bought and who can't. So, Rob, we're almost out of time. Were there any other aspects this month that we needed to talk about before we
I wanted to reserve enough time to talk about that one. That one's that's a big one. The other stuff, we're in a Mercury retrograde, which speak to all this communication challenges we're going through, and also part of the confusion too. We talked about this full moon and the lack of clarity and the sort of Neptune squaring Mercury and all that stuff. Over this next, this is it's a time where clarity can be really a challenge for sure. But yeah, we talked about the main ones that I had written down.
Great. I just wanted to make sure that suddenly we weren't the music started for the closing and you went, well, there was a couple of other things I wanted to slide in. I wasn't sure what the order was. This was a fascinating last half of the show, conversation about Pluto and looking at the arcs and, looking at arcs and themes from an astrological perspective is always fascinating to me.
Same.
Especially when you can step back and you can look at it. Yeah. So, next week, Ashley and I'll be on talking about creating your best 2024. And Rob will be touching base with you in about a month.
All right.
Everybody have a merry, happy ho-ho.
All right. To you as well. And you as well, Ashley.
You too, Rob.